Hi, hello, vanakkam and welcome to the First Step Academy Learn and Grow Educational Medium. In continuation of the topic called ratio and proportion, in this video we are going to see about proportion. Right, we know about ratio, right? What do you mean by ratio? Ratio is a comparison of two quantities. So a comparison of two quantities can be expressed in the form of ratio, right? That can be expressed as A is to B, or in another way A to B, right? A by B, or in another way A to B. These are the way that we can express the ratio, right? Fine. So here the proportion means something like A is to B, just take it the other ratio called C is to D, right? If these two ratios are equal, then those two ratios are in proportion. That's what exactly we are coming to say here. So as I said that, look at, there are the two ratios called A is to B and C is to D. So that can be written in another form like A is to B can be written as A by B, and C is to D also can be written as C by D, right? So now this proportion can be expressed in the following form called A by B is equal to C by D. Or in other way, this can be expressed as A is to B proportion C is to D, where this is a symbol for proportion. A is to B proportion C is to D. For an example, we'll take two frames, right, called X and Y. So for frame X, we have a two dimension called width and height. So width I have taken as A, height I have taken as B. So width is 10 centimeter and height is 20 centimeter. Same like for frame Y, we have two dimension called width and height, where I have taken width as C and height as D, where the value is 20 centimeter for C and 40 centimeter for D. Now I am going to write a ratio between width to height for both the frame, right? I am going to write ratio between width to height for both the frame. So for frame X, the ratio between width to height is A is to B. The value is A is 10, B is 20, so 10 is to 20. I have written ratio, right? Next, for frame Y, the ratio between width to height is C is to D. So that can be written as 20 is to 40. Right? Understood? Fine. So we know very well that one of the important property of ratio is we should write the ratio in the simplest form. So look at the values of the ratio. If we can reduce to the lowest or simplest form, we should reduce it and then we should write, right? For frame X, the ratio is A is to B, the value is 10 is to 20. If you look at the two terms, then these two terms can be divided by the common value called 10. Hence 1 10 is 10, 2 10s are 20. So the ratio is 1 is to 2. The same way for frame Y, there are the two terms are there and the value is 20 and 40. So this can be divided by the common number called 20. Hence 120 is 20 and 2 20s are 40. This is the another ratio. Now look at the ratio of the frame X and frame Y. Ratio of frame X is 1 is to 2 and ratio of frame Y is 1 is to 2. So both the ratio called A is to B is equal to C is to D. So then this kind of ratio can be expressed in the form of proportion. That can be expressed as mentioned here. A is to B proportion C is to D, or A is to B is equal to A by B is equal to C by D. Hope you understand, right? I think you are clear on this topic called proportion. Now we are going to see about proportionality law, right? Proportionality law, this is one of the important property of the proportion. So the proportion law, what it states in the sense, if two ratios are in proportion, like as we said that A is to B proportion C is to D, if these two ratios are in proportion, then the product of the extremes is equal to the product of the means. This is what exactly this proportionality law states. So the product of the extremes is equal to the product of the means if two ratios are in proportion. So what do you mean by extremes and means? That we should understand, right? Look at this proportion. We have two ratios, right? We have two ratios. Those two ratios are in proportion. Hence we mentioned as A is to B proportion C is to D. In this we have four terms called term 1, term 2, term 3 and term 4, where term 1 is A, term 2 is B, term 3 is C, term 4 is D. Now here extremes in the sense term 1 and term 4 generally we are calling as extremes. So both side extremes, right? So extremes on the left hand side, extremes of on the right hand side, right? Left hand side and right hand side. So the term 1 and term 4 we are calling as extremes, and term 2 and term 3 we are calling as means. Now once again we'll read the proportionality law. You will come to you will be clear on this. If two ratios are in proportion, then the product means multiplication, the product of the extremes is equal to the product of the means. This was the statement. This can be expressed as mentioned here. So I have taken two ratios called A by B is equal to C by D. Now what we'll do? The product of extremes A and D. So A into D is equal to product of means B into C. So B into C. So A into D is equal to B into C. As I said, product of extremes is equal to product of means. This what we are calling as proportionality law. In other way, we are calling as cross product rule. This also we can call as cross product rule. In what way? Look at these two ratios. A by B is equal to C by D. Now this D will go, in general mathematics we will do this, D will go to this side and B will go to this side, in the sense A into D, B into C will come. So the cross multiplication that we are doing here, hence we can call this proportionality law as, in another way, cross product rule. In another way, cross product rule. So you have understand. I think you can able to understand about proportionality law. This is one of the important property of proportion, right? Fine. Next we are going to see about fourth proportional and third proportional, right? So what do you mean by fourth proportional and third proportional? In the sense, if we have two ratios, right, called A is to B and C is to D, and these two ratios are proportion. So A is to B proportion or equal to C is to D. Then the fourth proportional of this proportion is the fourth term called D. So now we have two ratios called A is to B and C is to D. In this, the fourth proportional to A, B and C is D. So D is the fourth proportional to A, B and C. That's what we should be clear on this. Next we are going to see about third proportional. Third proportional in the sense, look at, we have a two ratios called A is to B and B is to C. Look at, its means is equal. Look at in this proportion, two extremes are different, but look at the means are equal. So in this condition, this kind of proportion we are calling as continued proportion, right? For example, A is to B is equal to B is to C is equal to C is to D is equal to D is to E is equal to E is to F. So in case if this kind of proportion exists, in the sense, this proportion we are calling as continued proportion, because its means generally will be equal, right? Fine. In this, the third proportional is, look at why third proportional, in the sense, in the previous case, in the fourth proportional we have four terms, but in this case we have only three terms. Hence the third proportional for this relation is C, right? So C is the third proportional to A and B. C is the third proportional to A and B. Fine. Next we are going to see about mean proportional between A and C. So here the mean proportional, look at the above relation, A is to B is equal to B is to C. Here the mean is B, right? So the mean proportional B between A and C can be expressed as B is equal to root of A into C. So how it has been arrived in the sense, so we have taken this proportion. So A is to B is equal to B is to C. This can be expressed as A by B is equal to B by C. Now what we can do the cross multiplication, cross product rule we can apply here also. So A into C is AC, which is equal to B into B is B square. In other way I can take it as B square is equal to A into C. Now look at, so here square, here no square. If I want to remove the square, I have to take square root on both sides. So B square square root of B square is equal to square root of AC. The square and square root will cancel. So B is equal to square root of A into C. So this is we are calling as mean proportional B between A and C. So mean proportional B between A and C can be expressed as B is equal to square root of A into C. How we arrived this has been explained here. Hope you can understand clearly. Right? Fine. Next, what we are going to see in the sense, important properties of this proportion. Already we have seen one property that's called cross product rule, or we can call it as, already we have seen one property, right? Cross product rule, or we can call it as proportionality law, right? Fine. So now we are going to see the other properties called invertendo. First one is invertendo. Invertendo in the sense, it's simple thing. If we have two ratios called A is to B and C is to D, if these two ratios are in proportion, then its inverse is also will be in proportion. That's what this property says. If these two ratios called A is to B and C is to D is in proportion, then its inverse is also in proportion. How? We'll work it out now. So A is to B, this is the one ratio, right? A is to B can be expressed by A by B, right? Can also be expressed A by B. Same way, C is to D can also expressed by C by D. Now according to this, I am going to write A by B is equal to C by D. The same proportion I have written like this, we can write, right? Now what I am going to do is, we have to take inverse. Inverse in the sense 1 by A by B is equal to 1 by C by D. This is we are calling as inverse of A by B and inverse of C by D. Now what will happen in this, in the sense, look at the denominator, this B will go to the numerator and this D will go to the numerator. Now this will transform as B by A is equal to D by C, right? B by A is equal to D by C. So look at, once again I am saying, if these two ratios are there, A is to B and C is to D, then if these two ratios are in proportion, then its inverse is also in proportion. So in that way, the ratio I have taken as A by B is equal to C by D, and the inverse can be expressed as 1 by A by B is equal to 1 by C by D. Now this B will go to the numerator and in this term D will go to the numerator. Hence this we can write it as B by A is equal to D by C. That's what exactly we expressed here. If the first property is invertendo, if A is to B is proportional to C is to D, then its inverse is also proportional. Inverse is also in proportion, right? That's what exactly it says, invertendo property. Next, Alterendo property. Alternendo property is the another property. What it in the sense, look at, we have a 4 terms in these two ratios called term 1, term 2, term 3 and term 4, right? If the term 2 and term 3 interchange, right? In these two ratios we have 4 terms. In this term 2 and term 3 interchange their places in the sense, then whatever the new ratio we formed, right, those new ratios also in proportion. That's what exactly this alternendo says. Once again I am saying, we have 2 ratios in these 4 terms called term 1, term 2, term 3 and term 4. In this ratio, term 2 and term 3 interchange their places in the sense, then also the ratios are in proportion. That's what exactly we are saying here. Look at the below here. So A will be in the same place, but look at C and B, it interchanged their places. The third term C will come to the second place and second term B will come to the third place. So A is to C proportion B is to D, means A is to C is equal to B is to D. This is the another property, important property called Alternendo. And next we are going to see about Componendo. So Componendo is the another property. In this, what we are coming to say is, we have a 2 ratios and 4 terms called A is to B and C is to D. If these 2 ratios are in proportion, then the componendo of these 2 ratios can be expressed as A plus B is to B equal to C plus D is to D. That's what exactly this property express. How? In the sense, we'll write it out. Look at A by B. That's what this ratio express, and C by D can be written as C by D. Right? Now what I'm going to do in the sense, A by B is equal to C by D. On both sides I'm going to add 1, hence value will not change. Am I right or wrong? Right. So both the side I'm going to add 1, so value will not change. Now do the cross multiplication. So A plus B into 1 is B divided by denominator value B is equal to C plus 1 into D is D divided by denominator value D. That's it. A plus B divided by B is equal to C plus D divided by D. That's what we expressed here. The same things we are expressed in another way. A plus B is to B is equal to C plus D is to D. This property is called Componendo. Right? Next, what is Dividendo? Next property is Dividendo. Next property is Dividendo. So what, in the sense, we have a 2 ratios called A is to B and C is to D. If these 2 ratios are in proportion, and according to the property called Dividendo, these terms also will be in proportion, means these 2 ratios also will be in proportion, called A minus B is to B is equal to C minus D is to D. This is called Dividendo. How? In the sense, as like Componendo, here we are not going to add 1, instead of we are going to subtract 1. So A by B minus 1 is equal to C by D minus 1. Now do the cross multiplication. So A minus B divided by B, which is equal to C minus D divided by D. Now this we can write in this form also. So A minus B is to B is equal to C minus D is to D. So this is the property we are calling as Dividendo. Right? The other property that we are going to see now is Componendo and Dividendo. Componendo and Dividendo is the other property. It's a mixture of Componendo property and Dividendo property. So if the 2 ratios are there called A by B and C by D are in proportion, then we can write this A plus B divided by A minus B and C plus D divided by C minus D is also in proportion. That's what this property says. If A by B and C by D is in proportion, then A plus B divided by A minus B and C plus D divided by C minus D is also in proportion. How? In the sense, we know very well about Componendo property and Dividendo property. So Componendo property is what it? A plus B divided by B, which is equal to C plus D divided by D. This I have taken as 1. Next, what is the Dividendo property? A minus B divided by B, which is equal to C minus D divided by D. Right? So this I have taken as 2. Now what I am going to do is 1 divided by 2. This is what I am going to do. 1 divided by 2. So now 1 is A plus B divided by B divided by A minus B divided by B, which is equal to C plus D divided by D divided by C minus D divided by D. Now this B and B will cancel each other, and this D and this D will cancel each other. Now this we can write in the new form called A plus B divided by A minus B, which is equal to C plus D divided by C minus D. This is we are calling as Componendo and Dividendo property. So according to the Componendo and Dividendo property, if two ratios are in proportion, then a plus b divided by a minus b and c plus d divided by c minus d is also in proportion. Understand? I think you can able to understand this concept too. Now the other one, the property we are calling as Addendo and Subtrahendo property. So Addendo property. What do you mean by Addendo property? In the sense, look at, we have a 2 ratios and 4 terms obviously. So a is to b is one ratio and c is to d is the other ratio. In this we know about that antecedent and consequent. So where here a is the antecedent and b is the consequent. Here a is the antecedent and b is the consequent. So Addendo property explains that if we have these 2 ratio in proportion, then sum of antecedent of these 2 ratio is to sum of consequent of these 2 ratio, right? This is what Addendo explains, right? For example, how it has been erased, that I'm going to explain now. So this a by b that I'm taking as value called k. So c by d, that is also I'm taking value as k, because both a by b and c by d is equal, hence same value I have taken. Now b will go this side, d will go this side. So a is equal to b into k and c is equal to d into k. Am I right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this a and c. So a plus c is equal to, what will get? bk plus dk. Am I right? Now a plus c is equal to, k is common, I can take it as outside. So b plus d into k. Now this b plus d, if I am bringing to the other side, so a plus c divided by b plus d is equal to k. Hence this a plus c divided by b plus d can be write in this form called a plus c is to b plus d. So according to the Addendo property, if we have 2 ratios or in proportion called a is to b is equal to c is to d, then we can write those 4 terms in this form called a plus c is to b plus d. Fine. Next, Subtrahendo property. The final one, Subtrahendo property. If we have 2 ratios called a is to b and c is to d in proportion, then according to this Subtrahendo property, we can write a minus c is to b minus d. A minus c is to b minus d. How? In the sense, in the Addendo property, we added the value called a and c. Here in Subtrahendo property, we are going to subtract this a and c. We know the value of a is bk and c is dk, and we are going to subtract this a minus c. Hence, the right hand side values also will be subtract. So bk minus dk. Now a minus c can be written as b minus d of k, because k is common one, I'm taking outside. So a minus d is equal to b minus d into k. So a minus c divided by b minus d is equal to k. So this is the one. So a minus c divided by b minus d can be write in this form called a minus c is to b minus d. So according to the Subtrahendo property, if we have a 2 ratio in proportion called a is to b is equal to c is to d, then those ratio can be write in this form called a minus c is to b minus d. Right? Hope you observed all the properties and basics of this proportion. In the previous video, we explained about ratio also. So this ratio and proportions are much important. And if you know about all these concepts thorough, then you can able to solve any problem given under this topic. Hope you understand what we explained so far. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, kindly share it, comment it, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks once again. This is your the First Step Academy Learn and Grow Educational Medium.